I'm Jackson Cole, the guy people in Redwood Harbor call when a billion-dollar mess hits the courthouse. The widower who sleeps with the TV on, because silence has teeth. And the night this story starts, I opened my bedroom door, and there she was. A soaked little girl with torn sneakers clutching two newborns on my white duvet, like a fox guarding fallen birds. And before my brain could catch up, the smallest twin, convulsed eyes rolling back, breath thin, and every part of me that pretends to be made of iron just broke and ran. I ditched the phone wrapped. The baby yelled for the garage to heat up, keys in hand, and Lena, that's her name, voice small but stubborn, chased me down the stairs with the other infant, and a look that said, "Touch him wrong and I'll fight you." Which, trust me, I believed, and we hit the road in a storm that sounded like nails on the windshield. The hospital lights showing up like a ship in fog, Dr. Alvarez taking the child with the calm of a captain, asking for names and allergies, and the one thing I didn't have a history, just a plea: save him. And a girl trying to push past a nurse the size of an oak. I crouched eye level and told her if we crowd them, we slow them down. And she asked if I was a dad, like she was checking my credentials for kindness. And I couldn't answer, because grief has a way of locking your tongue. So I sat there, with my head against a painted cinder block, listening to machines that weren't built for someone that small, counting the seconds, in a language only fear understands. They stabilized him, thank God, and in that plastic chair with her brother breathing easier, Lena looked at me and said what nobody says out loud, but every kid who has been through it knows, nobody gives something for free. What do you want from us? And I said for him to wake up tomorrow, because you know what I mean. Sometimes the truth is the only bargain left. Back at my house, the storm ran out of rage. The foyer smelled like lemon oil and a museum, and I tried to make a bottle like a rational adult. At 5 in the morning, shook it like a maraca, tested the wrist. Drip nodded like I knew anything, popped the cap straight off, and baptized my shirt in formula. And Lena laughed, really laughed, then swallowed it like joy was illegal, and I thought maybe this big, empty place could hold something warmer than silence. By noon, my deputy Casey Nguyen walked in with groceries, backup plans, eyes that see 10 problems ahead, and said we have to call social services, because if we go rogue, we'll lose them before we start. And the room went cold. Lena stood so fast, the chair-scraped hands wrapped around the carrier's voice going thin. They'll split us, that's what they do. They say for the best, then nobody eats and it's cold and the music is loud and there's no milk. And I said no one is splitting you while I can stand in a courtroom. And Casey studied me because she knows I like rules more than feelings. Then said fine, we protect them and we call it in, which is how Rita Delgado showed up with a folder and a voice tuned to carry both compassion and policy, asking, "Where's your father? When did you last eat? Who hit you?" And Lena said he wasn't a dad. He was a storm, and yeah, that happened. The kind of sentence that rearranges the furniture inside your chest. For a week, it was bottles and burp cloths, and a house slowly remembering what warmth felt like. Then the gate buzzer went off, and in walked Darren Brooks, bloodshot jaw, working 2 relatives behind him who smelled like 2 p.m. at a bar, and he barked, "I'm here for my kids," like the foyer owed him rent, and Lena froze behind the couch, clutching Max so tight he squeaked, and I stepped into the doorway with that calm you practice when a witness goes. Sideways told him I knew his file and the restraining orders and the part where checks got cashed while kids got hungry, and he sneered. "You're just a rich suit," and I said sure, and I make a living. When men like you underestimate what a courtroom can do, and his brother-in-law tried sugar. It was hard on us, we loved those kids. And Lena came up shaking, voice sharp as a snapped twig. "You loved the checks and the music and the broken chairs, not us." And that was the moment I knew we were going to trial whether the state wanted it or not. Courtrooms have a smell. Old wood paper dust coffee that died in a pot at 6 a.m. And the day of the hearing, the benches were full because people love a spectacle with a moral attached. Casey stacked binders like a skyline opposing counsel. Victor Lang put on his, my client, lost his way, face asked for second chances like they grew on trees, and Judge Montgomery, who hates theatrics, nodded once, then called me. And I said, love isn't a word you haul out. After a bender, love gets up at 3 a.m., sits in hard chairs, learns to make a bottle. You're bad at, love doesn't leave a 7-year-old to carry 2 infants into a storm because there's no milk, and the gallery went quiet. In that way you can feel in your bones. The judge said, call the child, and Lena walked up in a white dress, Casey picked feet not touching the floor. Victor tried to smile soft and asked if maybe she was confused, and she looked at him the way kids look at adults who have never been cold. No. I remember all of it, and she told it plain. The hunger, the slap when she asked for medicine, the rain night, she counted 5 lies to climb my stairs, the garage light that looked like a promise. And she said, I didn't go there to steal, I went so my brothers could breathe. And you could hear pens stop moving, because sometimes truth doesn't need a closing argument. We broke for 15 minutes. Marble Hall, humming reporters, smelling blood. And I paced with a fire in my chest that had nowhere to go, Casey saying, we have enough for criminal charges, we can bury them. And then a small hand tugged my jacket, Lena with Max, asleep against her shoulder, voice quiet, but somehow stronger than the whole building. You don't have to punish him for me. I don't want to grow up with a heart full of what he put in me if you do anything. Do it so other kids are safe, but don't do it because of me. I want to graduate from what happened, not live in it. And friends, I have demolished CEOs. I have carved lies like marble. But that speech knocked the air out of me. We went back in. The judge read longer than usual, glasses, low pen, scratching, then looked up with eyes I'd never seen on that bench and said, guardianship and custody of Lena Milo and Max Brooks are awarded to Mr. Jackson Cole. And the room cracked open, reporters sprinted, someone cheered, Lena cried and laughed at the same time, ran straight into me with a force that made my ribs new. Whispered, we have a home now, and I said we do, and I meant it like a vow you nail to a door. After that, the house learned a better rhythm. The leather couch got a blanket of burp cloths, my calendar surrendered space to nap, windows, and school pickups. Helen, the nanny, sang off-key lullabies that worked anyway. Casey became Aunt Casey without admitting it, and one afternoon I tried to teach Lena to ride a bike and we tipped into the grass. She laughed until she hiccuped and then slipped. Dad, you're clumsy. We both froze. She reached to take it back. I wouldn't let her. You said it right. And that night I moved the extra toothbrush from the guest bath to the master and slept like a man who'd found his address. It isn't all soft light. Darren got arrested in a bar fight a month later. Headline like a storm offshore. Lena found the paper first, folded it careful, said, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. And years later at her graduation in a church basement with folding chairs that wobble, the twins wriggling free, and an entire row laughing, while I chased them, she stood at the mic and said, I used to think the world was only storms. Then someone opened a door and didn't ask why. First he just ran. I learned love is louder than shame if you let it be. Then she looked at me and said, thank you, Dad, and yeah, I cried the way men like me say we won't. Today she runs the Harbor Light Home. Blue ribbon cut balloons, kids with backpacks too heavy for their shoulders and eyes too old for their age. The twins volunteer, one drawing portraits, one coaching hoops in the parking lot. Casey stands beside me pretending not to tear up. And I tell her you saved 3 and it turned into 100. And she says they saved you first, and she's right. You know what I mean. That's the part that satisfies. But here's the part that keeps the comments section honest. If you sat in that courtroom, would you have pushed for a prison cell or a monitored rehab? If you wore the robe, would you gamble on a stranger who showed up and loved them right? Or a father who promised to change when a child asks for forgiveness? Is that wisdom or a wound trying to make itself smaller and tell me straight? Does a man like me get an easier road because of money and reputation? Or did the system finally get one right? Drop your take in the comments, argue it out. Tell me what justice is in your town, what mercy costs, what you've seen behind closed doors that changed the way you judge people. And if this hits something real, share it with someone who needs proof that family can be built from a promise and a warm room. Then hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. We start in the dark here, but we make sure the light sticks around.